He didn't hate them, he just obeyed. That same blind obedience operates in your office right now. The agentic shift, a moment when conscience hands the wheel to authority, is a phenomenon that has been observed in various settings, from corporate hierarchies to social groups. It is a subtle yet powerful mechanism that can lead individuals to commit atrocities, all under the guise of just following orders. The agentic shift is a gradual process, often initiated by subtle cues and reinforced by systemic pressures. It is a dance between the individual's moral compass and the demands of authority, with the latter often gaining the upper hand. This phenomenon has been observed in various contexts, from the Holocaust to modern-day corporate scandals. The agentic shift is a reminder that even the most well-intentioned individuals can become complicit in atrocities, all under the guise of just following orders. It is a sobering reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of critical thinking in the face of authority. As we delve deeper into the phenomenon of obedience, we are forced to confront the darker aspects of human nature. We must ask ourselves, are we complicit in the agentic shift, or do we have the courage to stand against it? The agentic shift is a powerful force that can be harnessed for good or evil. We must learn to recognize its subtle cues and resist its insidious pull. Only then can we hope to reclaim our moral agency and become the heroes we were meant to be. The agentic shift is a reminder that we are not just passive recipients of orders, but active participants in the dance between our moral compass and the demands of authority. We must learn to navigate this complex terrain with courage, wisdom, and a deep understanding of human nature. As we continue to explore the phenomenon of obedience, we are forced to confront the darker aspects of human nature. We must ask ourselves, are we complicit in the agentic shift, or do we have the courage to stand against it? The agentic shift is a powerful force that can be harnessed for good or evil. We must learn to recognize its subtle cues and resist its insidious pull. Only then can we hope to reclaim our moral agency and become the heroes we were meant to be. The agentic shift is a reminder that we are not just passive recipients of orders, but active participants in the dance between our moral compass and the demands of authority. We must learn to navigate this complex terrain with courage, wisdom, and a deep understanding of human nature. As we conclude this chapter, we are left with a haunting question. Are we complicit in the agentic shift, or do we have the courage to stand against it? The answer lies within us, and it is a choice we must make every day. The agentic shift is a powerful force that can be harnessed for good or evil. We must learn to recognize its subtle cues and resist its insidious pull. Only then can we hope to reclaim our moral agency and become the heroes we were meant to be. The agentic shift is a reminder that we are not just passive recipients of orders, but active participants in the dance between our moral compass and the demands of authority. We must learn to navigate this complex terrain with courage, wisdom, and a deep understanding of human nature. The agentic shift is a powerful force that can be harnessed for good or evil. We must learn to recognize its subtle cues and resist its insidious pull. Only then can we hope to reclaim our moral agency and become the heroes we were meant to be. New Haven, autumn of 1961. A quiet Ivy League campus hides a secret. Inside a nondescript basement lab, a man in a white coat adjusts a shock generator. The cover story. A study on memory and punishment. Volunteers are paid $20. The volunteer enters the room. A stranger is strapped to a chair. Electrodes attached. The experimenter instructs the volunteer to administer shocks for incorrect answers. The learner screams as the first shock is administered. The volunteer looks uneasy. The learner pounds on the wall. The volunteer hesitates. Then continues. The learner's screams grow weaker. Then, silence. The volunteer doesn't notice. This is just the beginning. Subscribe to see more amazing content. Fire. The experimenter delivers the first prod. The experiment requires that you continue. The volunteer complies. The dial keeps turning. The learner never moves again. 65% of volunteers reached the highest voltage. No one stopped early. Ordinary people, ordinary men, doing extraordinary evil, just because they were told. The experimenter's voice echoes in the halls of Yale. Echoes today. The learner's screams were real. The experiment was a lie. The question remains. How far will you go when someone tells you to? The prods were simple. The consequences were not. The experimenter's words were authority. The volunteer's hands were the tools. The learner's screams were a lie. The pain was real. The human mind possesses a terrifying safety mechanism known as the agentic state. When authority takes the wheel, the conscience steps into the shadows. This isn't madness. It is a subtle psychological hijacking of the self. We willingly surrender our moral compass to a higher power, feeling zero guilt in the process. Modern neuroscience has finally caught up with these terrifying observations. fMRI scans reveal a dramatic shutdown in the anterior cingulate cortex, the area responsible for error detection. Simultaneously, the insula goes completely silent. This is the biological death of empathy. The brain effectively ceases to care about the suffering of others when ordered to comply. Why does the human mind accept such cruelty without blinking? The answer lies in cognitive dissonance resolution. The participant convinces themselves they are not hurting anyone. Instead, they tell themselves they are helping science. This self-justification loop rewires reality, transforming a villain into a volunteer. We rationalize the evil to preserve our own self-image. There is a profound psychological relief in becoming a cog in the machine. This is diffusion of responsibility. By viewing themselves as a mere agent of the experimenter, participants shed the burden of accountability. They are not the decision-maker. They are just a tool executing a function. The horror of the act is diluted by the distance from the outcome. The transition from silence to screaming violence is not a sudden leap. It is a slow, calculated climb known as the foot-in-the-door technique. It begins with a tiny, harmless command, just a few volts to test the machine. Once that initial commitment is made, the psychological barrier crumbles. We normalize the escalating evil to avoid admitting the first step was wrong. As the voltage rises, the brain adapts to the pressure. The shock of the situation is numbed by the ritual of the procedure. The participant becomes a spectator to their own actions. The terrifying realization is that our biology is designed to obey, not to rebel. We are wired to follow the script, no matter how dark the ending. Imagine the silence in that room. The only sound is the hum of the machine. The participant stares blankly at the dial, completely detached from the screams in the other room. This detachment is the hallmark of the agentic state. We become observers of our own atrocities, trapped in a loop of mechanical compliance. A single app, one tap, the world's labor force now answers to machines. No human manager, no face-to-face reprimand, just an algorithm's cold verdict. The experimenter no longer wears a lab coat. It's a server farm in Silicon Valley. Wells Fargo employees were told to open accounts for customers they didn't know. They weren't told to steal, just to meet targets. Volkswagen engineers knew their cars were cheating. They just followed the numbers. Content moderators in the Philippines see horrors no one else should witness. They're told to enforce policy, not to feel, not to question, just comply. AI now decides what's acceptable, and we obey the math like it's gospel. The white coat today is a black box, and we're all just lab rats. The experiment never ended. It just got smarter. How many of us are still waiting for the prod? The sentence that will make us stop? Or are we already past it? Completely obedient to the system? What if the real experiment is whether we can break the cycle? In a dimly lit Yale basement, 106 men stood before a machine. 65% obeyed until the end. But 35% did not. Their refusal wasn't just about the volts. It was about the moment they saw the game. They questioned the authorities' script, the experiment's legitimacy, the very air they breathed in that room. What separated them? A split-second hesitation. A single, defiant thought. This isn't real. Philip Zimbardo, the psychologist who later designed the Stanford prison experiment, would spend decades studying this 35%. He called it heroic disobedience, not rebellion, but the quiet act of refusing to participate in a system that had already broken down. It wasn't about being brave. It was about seeing the system for what it was. The machine wasn't just a tool. It was a lie, and the men who stopped knew it. Zimbardo's work led him to create the Heroic Imagination Project, a training program for people to recognize the agentic shift in real time, the moment authority whispers, "Just do your job," and your conscience hands over the wheel. The pause button isn't about hesitation. It's about noticing the shift before it's too late. It's the difference between a cog and a human. The first step is naming the game. What kind of pressure are you under? Is it policy? Fear? Loyalty? The moment you label it, you step back. You stop being a player and start seeing the board. The game isn't about obedience. It's about who's really in control. And when you name it, you reclaim that power. But naming the game is only half the battle. The other half is finding an ally. Social proof isn't just about following the crowd. It's about creating the crowd. When one person stands up, others follow. It's the difference between a lone voice in the dark and a chorus. The disobedient don't just refuse. They invite others to refuse with them. They turn silence into solidarity. The third step is appealing to a higher authority. Not the one pulling the strings, but the one that matters. Ethics isn't just a rulebook. It's the mission you signed up for. When you appeal to it, you're not just saying no. You're saying, this isn't who we are. And that's the most dangerous thing of all. It forces the system to justify itself. And systems hate that. But heroic disobedience isn't just about stopping harm. It's about protecting the mission. Loyalty isn't blind. It's about standing guard over the values that make the mission worth fighting for. When you see a system twisting into something it wasn't meant to be, you don't just walk away. You fight to bring it back. That's the difference between a follower and a leader. The 35% who refused in the Yale basement didn't do it because they were stronger. They did it because they saw. They saw the machine for what it was. They saw the system for what it could become. And they chose every single time to not participate. That's the power of heroic disobedience. It's not about being right. It's about seeing the truth before it's too late. Today, the Heroic Imagination Project trains people in hospitals, schools, and corporations to recognize the agentic shift. They teach nurses to speak up when patients are ignored. They teach teachers to challenge bullying. They teach engineers to refuse unethical designs. Because the world doesn't need more followers. It needs more people who can see the game and then refuse to play. What if the next time you're asked to do something that feels wrong, you didn't just obey? What if you paused? What if you named the game? Found an ally? And then, just once, you refused. Not because you were brave, but because you were human. The next chapter will explore how modern systems, from algorithms to corporate cultures, are designed to make heroic disobedience nearly impossible. But first, ask yourself, when was the last time you paused? And what would you do if you did it again? What is the dark truth behind this event? Share your theory below and watch our next investigation. Welcome! Before we begin, hit subscribe so you don't miss our daily updates. Bell subscribe now before the next video. We have a special upload tomorrow. High voltage.